What's going on, everyone? Hello and welcome to the Yahoo Sports football season preview. I am Matt Harmon, and I am joined by three esteemed gentlemen here at the table with me. Justin Boone, Nate Tice, and Ben Fawkes. What's going on, boys? Boone, I'll start with you.
Man, having a great time here in Vegas, getting to meet a lot of people from Yahoo, like these two gentlemen for the first time. Yeah, couldn't be having a better time.
Absolutely. Nate Tice, easy commute for you here, buddy.
Yeah, I know. A nice little 15-minute drive in onto. Well, a little shorter. Well, maybe not you, but a little shorter than most people. But no, it's great to see everybody. It was fun doing the show last night, and Venetian's doing a great job, too.
Ben, welcome to the show, buddy. How we doing?
It's been great to be here. Great to be back in Vegas this is day 10, I think, on this trip. So we're surviving.
Are you okay? Like mentally, physically, emotionally?
I'll give you a signal if we need to tap out. But no, doing great. Should be a great show.
Absolutely. We've got a ton to get into today. We're going to go through biggest storylines of the season, picks and predictions for the Super Bowl, MVP, some fantasy stuff at the end. Let's waste no more time. The 2025 season is rapidly approaching here, so let's get into it. Nate, I'm going to start with you. What is the biggest storyline of this season to you?
Oh, to me, it's the team that's kind of taking the headlines for better or for worse. I mean, the team that has 6 national TV games, potentially 7, I think, seven national TV games, the Chiefs. And the Kansas City Chiefs, I know we're tired of talking about them. They're still relevant. They are still absolutely relevant. And my big question for him, or really I think this is just going to grab the headlines week in, week out, is this a reload this year? Is this another push to the Super Bowl for the 4th time in a row? Or is this a total reset? Hey, we're revamping. We might just be a wild card team. The Broncos are kind of sniffing up on us. You know, the AFC got a lot of tough teams at the top as well. So it's just, is it a reload or a reset? I think it's more of a reload, spoilers. But I do think this is going to be a huge storyline week in, week out, especially since they're going to be on every week on national TV or some island game, so they're gonna be very relevant as always.
As a Bills fan, I shudder every time I hear the Chiefs. It's just like, no, not again. Don't do this to me again.
A visceral response.
But I agree. I do think it is a reload, right? Like that offense, Patrick Mahomes, stats-wise, come back down the last couple of years. But that receiving core, I know we have to wait to see what happens with Rashee Rice, but when they're all out there, so young, so talented, Travis Kelce declining a little bit, but man, they have Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy, Jalen Royals, right? We'll see if Hollywood Brown's going to be healthy. I don't know if he's going to be ready to start the season or not, but they have some weapons in that offense to really hit that gear again.
And they're gassed up on Tyquan Thornton. Boone, how high have you jacked up Tyquan Thornton in your fantasy rankings?
I don't think he's in my top 300. I don't think he has made the top 300 yet.
Hit him again. Yeah. Mahomes last night on the preseason game, he went deep, I think, 4 straight times, 20 or more yards down the field. Like, they're going to try and do it. The O-line, the young guys are impressing. Again, we got to see a rookie left tackle that's coming off a patella tendon, Josh Simmons, and then also Kingsley Suamataia, who actually has looked good this preseason, solid. So if those guys are okay, that's all they have to get to. Okay, they can attack deep, and I think there's going to be a little more explosiveness to this offense.
They're also a cheap price in the AFC West, right? They're like minus 110, 120 to win the AFC West.
Right.
You talk about the Chiefs, I think it's 9 straight years? Like, that's kind of just a bet you make, you forget it, you cash at the end of the season. That's the same thing with the Broncos, like we talked about, Chargers coming potentially, but still, that's a very cheap price on the Kansas City Chiefs to just win the division. That's it.
It's a good bet to make. I mean, a pretty safe one. You
know?
It's fun, too, because I love that Kansas City is sort of just moving different era to era. You know, I mean, they lose the Super Bowl the last time to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Brett Veach basically says to Patrick Mahomes, we're never going to let that happen again, right, from an offensive line standpoint. Well, they did let it happen again against the Philadelphia Eagles this past year. Now they're throwing resources into that. They do have these young, explosive players, as you mentioned, Boone. I'm curious, Nate, just to wrap this up, how do we feel about Worthy heading into year 2? I know you and I have had our issues with his game, like from a complete skill set standpoint, but he did round into form towards the end of the year. How do you project him as like a big figure for this offense in year 2?
Much better in getting slotted down, because I think him and Rice will be able to split so much of that offense and just being in a better role. It was kind of like a lot of the touches he was getting. I do think Worthy's always going to be a limited player in some regards, but now if you have other talented players, okay, let's just keep him on the stuff that he's actually good at. Like when he just has to run a straight go vertical route, it's not great. He can kind of get snuffed out. Get him on the move, and now we have guys like Rashee Rice that can play on the ball or off the ball, can kind of do some more inverse stuff, just have more team speed. So I think that's just going to help him out. Even if I think Rice does eat into some of the production, or maybe some of the potential production that he has.
Totally, and I think Worthy can kind of eat into Rice a little bit
Right.
too, in some of those like quicker outbreaking routes against man coverage, and like you mentioned, getting him on the move and full like a corner route, stuff like that. That's where I want to see, and a little bit better pass protection that can give you that extra space as well. So Boone, sorry to give you a little bit of the jitters about the Chiefs there as a Bills fan, but I'm coming
used to
to
it,
you.
Mike.
I'm coming to you for the next one here. What's your biggest storyline for this season?
I want to see, can Ben Johnson actually fix the Bears? Because last season, when they took Caleb Williams, I think everyone got a little ahead of their skis on, oh my God, this team, it's going to happen. They have a quarterback now. They're going to make the playoffs. They're going to be contenders. And that coaching staff really let them down. And after they made the coaching change, I think we saw some flashes from Caleb Williams where, okay, maybe he can do it if he gets a little bit better coaching. And now they have that there. But it's also everything else that they've done this offseason, fixing that offensive line. And, we can see how that goes. They've made big moves on the interior there, bringing in Joe Thuney and Drew Dahlman and Jonah Jackson. I think that's good. Regardless, it is going to be an upgrade there. The weapons that they brought in, the rookie pass catchers, right? Colston Loveland, bring in Luther Burden, who right now behind Olamide Zaccheaus. And yet, I think later in the season, we're going to see Burden get into that role and really be a factor in this offense. So the weapons are there. It seems like Caleb Williams now is starting to figure it out a little bit. People go crazy about his practice performances. Like, this is the time of year when he's going to throw a ton of interceptions, when he's got to figure out his limitations. What can he do in this offense? What does Ben Johnson expect of him? And we're going to see some ups and downs. Even in the preseason, we saw that, right? He comes out against my Bills, not to make it all about the Bills, but absolutely destroys the Bills, right? And then in the third preseason game, a little more up and down, some mistakes, right? It's going to be that way, I think, early in the season too, but they're going to get it right. And we saw this with the Carolina Panthers last year. Dave Canales shows up. Dave Canales, can he fix Bryce Young? Early in the season, didn't look like it. In the second half of the year, all of a sudden, we see a new Bryce Young. I think we're going to see something similar with Caleb Williams, where as the year goes along, he's going to figure it out, and this team is probably going to be pretty good.
When Andy Dalton got Nancy Kerrigan on the way to practice, yeah. You were going to say something about those?
I was just going to say that I think that's the perfect for preseason live betting, right? You watch that Bills-Bears game. That was going one way, and only one way, certainly. And the Bears, I think they're a fascinating team. Betting perspective, win total of 8.5. One bet, $300,000 from an Illinois bettor on the over 8.5. Public also likes the over. Again, Public tends to bet overs on teams. But talking to one odds maker here in Vegas at a book that takes a lot of sharp action, one of their sharpest bettors took under 8.5. Heard a couple other people like the under as well. So another team I think that will be split on. My only concern with Caleb Williams is it that same Urban Meyer situation with Trevor Lawrence, right, where the coaching was just so bad the year before, you need at least half a season, if not more, to kind of deprogram what happened. And it seems like they've worked on that this preseason, right, and the dropbacks and making sure everything's steady with him. He has everything around him, but you're also going up against Week 1, the Vikings defense, not the easiest to prepare for. I think it's going to be really interesting regardless. I just don't know if it's going to be that same second half of the season we start to see some more improvement from him versus right away. It's just, wow, the Bears, they're back.
I agree. Well, I have more Bears subjects later, so I don't want to use all my play all my cards here. But I will say, just even regarding the Week 1 thing, and this is something I've just been marinating on, because playing the Vikings, Ben Johnson's not unfamiliar with Brian Flores' game. And you look at maybe those recent Lions performances, they were also well game planned. It wasn't just, obviously it was guys making plays, but they were very well game planned, very well, knew exactly what buttons to push against that Flores thing. So that's kind of, I'm talking about both sides of my mouth. I do think it is going to be some ups and downs early, and then they get a lot of polish. I think they get the classic post-bye week bump, the Bears. I'm bullish on the Bears as opposed to, bearish on the Bulls. So it's but I really am. And I do think Caleb Williams wants to be coached hard. Mm-hmm. And I think Ben Johnson is a stickler for the rule stuff. And I think Caleb is more detail-oriented than he's gotten credit for. And this is just me, eye test scouting, because I did think last year he had a handle on the offense that was a little bit more advanced than I was even expecting for a guy that was an air raid guy. Yeah. So, it wasn't the greatest offense ever. So maybe, it probably wasn't maybe a big jump.
Well,
mentally.
it's like we've talked about. They put a lot on his shoulders, and they kept it there.
Oh, that's good. And we're like, actually, this might be bad.
This is maybe a bad thing. And you could tell throughout the course of the season, as issues continued to compound, they still kept a lot on his shoulders where, I like the way we're framing this so far, that this might end up being a good thing. Like, we might be bullish on the Bears in the long term, but does it take a few weeks to get rolling here? They have that early week 5 bye, which we've talked about. So those first 4 games, Minnesota, Detroit, Dallas, Las Vegas. I mean, it's kind of a mixed bag defensively there, but Nate, those first 2 weeks I think will tell us a lot, because that's kind of how they've done this in training camp so far too. They put a lot on him early, and then they've maybe started paring back a little bit.
And the early returns against your Bills, that's kind of what I was really I'm optimistic of seeing, and that was the little glimpse. Those couple drives was 1, 2, 3 ball out, 1, 2, 3 hitch ball out to the tight ends as well. Like obviously they took Loveland for a reason, and I'm high on Loveland as well. And I think that again, tight ends take time, but I do think that he has an understanding of what to get done on each play, and that's why I think it's great, because I think Ben Johnson provides, and we'll talk some Lions today and talk about, you know, he can kind of be the sniper. Hey, right here, shoot there, and that helps the quarterback. And then on third down, all right, you got to go do something. And we saw the Zacchaeus touchdown. That was truly Caleb Williams making a nice throw that wouldn't be there for every quarterback. So again, it's glimpses. I'm extrapolating. Do think there's going to be some lulls, but man, I just think this pairing on top of the offensive line stuff that you guys mentioned, on top of the weapons, and on top of a really good defense as well. So there's just a lot cooking up there in a wide open NFC.
Yeah, and like progress, it doesn't have to be linear here. It doesn't have to be like just this consistent
Disco
takeoff.
stew, man.
Like, yeah, it doesn't necessarily have to be like that. It could be a little bumpy here and there, especially because I do love how game plan specific Ben Johnson can be. In Detroit, it was about like feed the specific guys, but they have so many weapons throughout here. Honestly, Boone, I'm not to make it about your Bills, but it could be a little bit like that, where just every single game plan is different from Buffalo, because they don't have any elite players. They don't have any like high end skill position guys outside of James Cook. It's like a nice slot receiver in Khalil Shakir. They've got a perimeter guy in Keon Coleman. They've got the tight ends. I do kind of feel like this Bears offense could be that way, which could make it frustrating in fantasy, right, if you're taking some of these Bears guys, but I think the end product might be nice.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so much talent, and bottom line, I think Ben Johnson is the guy to get the most out of them, and it seems like the players are really happy about it. You said Caleb Williams. It seems like the rest of the players have been jacked about the fact that he's coming in and kind of putting that pressure on them to try to make them better.
On the fantasy pod to me, he said, "Hey, he's pushing us hard, and I love it." So I agree. Yeah,
that's why I thought that Bills game was really indicative. That I think Ben Johnson was doing a little bit like, hey, trust the process here, and they're kind of showing off a little bit with some of the stuff. I mean that in a good way, and I do think players do want to be coached hard, but it's not just the yelling. That's what I think some people think narratively. Oh, these screamers and everything. It's more that you're giving them tools to win with. So if you coach hard and then you're right, they'll go, okay, you can keep coaching me hard, like, because you were right the last time. So I think he's earning that trust, and that's I know that's more narrative scouting, but I am. Really,
but also, it's a track record of success within the division, right? You played against this team, and you're like, man, that offense was crushing us.
Absolutely.
Now he's over here.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of which, Ben, I'm coming to you on the next one. Biggest storyline from where Ben Johnson just left.
So this pains me as a Vikings fan, right? But maybe it's just me. I don't feel like we're talking about the Lions enough. There's a lot of Eagles, right? A lot of teams in the AFC. The Lions, all they've done is gone 27-7 the last 2 years, 15-2 last year, 24-10 against the number in the regular season. That's a 70% clip against the spread. They have a win total of 10.5. Again, that's the tied for their second most since 1989, second highest according to Sports Odds history, with their win total last year, right? So high expectations. Super Bowl odds at 10-1. Again, Sports Odds history, they go back to 1977 for the Lions. These are their best Super Bowl odds since at least 1977, right? So high expectations. Last year, they had the top defense by by EPA per play through Week 12, and then 29th the rest of the season. So a lot of injuries. Same thing, defense last in adjusted games lost, right? So basically, a very good defense that then fell apart due to injuries. We saw that in the playoffs against the Commanders. They just they didn't have enough fresh bodies really to go up against them. They got the number 1 seed last year, favored in 12 games this year. They do have the third toughest schedule by opposing season win totals, obviously replacing some things on the offensive line, replacing a couple coaches as well. So there are definitely concerns. They do have the biggest rest advantage, too, of any NFL team. So, right, based off of, who they're playing. I think they're 8 games over any other team. So big rest advantage as well. There's just a lot going on. I don't know that we've had the narrative around the Lions. Like, they've been very, very good. I think they're going to be very good again. I think people thought, hey, both coaches gone. Uh-oh. To me, they're still going to be right there in the NFC.
Nate, how are we feeling about the Lions? I feel like Ben's right. We've talked so much about the Vikings and J.J. McCarthy, Ben Johnson with the Bears, and I feel like we always end up talking about the Packers. So are we kind of overlooking the Lions?
I think a little, and I think this is even, I don't know how to gauge them. Like, it's so hard for me. Like, I respect them so much, and I know I'm not, I think a lot of people are in the same boat. But I do think there is that thing with the NFC, is that it's the Woody Andy meme, the Toy Story meme where he's dropping Woody. I don't want to play with you anymore. Where, including me, I've been a big believer in Dan Campbell since day one, and a big believer that this was on a right trajectory. Last year, I thought was the magnum opus. He was my coach of the year last year, and I just thought maybe it was like, okay, they shot their shot. Yeah. And then, but you look, and we did the top 10 offenses pod, top 10 defenses pod, Matt, on Football 301. I was even kind of going like, we started talking about their defenses, and I was like, yeah, maybe I kind of undersold this unit.
Yeah,
like, and I was kind of like looking at all of it. I'm like, yeah, in my head, I'm like, they don't have this. And then I look, I'm like, that's right. They drafted a guy from Ohio State. I'm blanking on his name right now, but Tyleek. Yeah. And so like, okay, they have a run plugger, which was like my big thing with them, even with Lee McNeil out. Okay, well, on offense, well, actually, they do have some interesting young guys like Christian Mahogany. I did like coming out of the draft, and when he played last year, he was decent. And the only reason he went in the 6th round was because of medical stuff. It wasn't ability, which is a big thing because it's like, oh, it's a 6th rounder, but it's like, well, if he was healthy, he was a 2nd or 3rd rounder, really. You know, and again, that's retconning some stuff, but I got to look at it. And I think that's one, so I agree with this. I think I have overlooked them because I have been looking around going like, ooh, look at those teams in the NFC West. Ooh, look at the Vikings, Packers, and Bears in the NFC North. So, yeah, I do think they are overlooking. I think I went under on 10.5 wins with them.
It's a high total, but also Aiden Hutchinson, right? I mean,
exactly.
the guy they were missing last year.
Should have been Defensive Player of the Year last year.
People were saying looks unblockable this preseason. So it's like, that's, you know, it's like everything one, I'm like, oh, they don't have this and this, but it's like, yeah, Hutchinson's getting back. Yeah, that's who cares about Zadarius Smith? Hutchinson's coming back, you know? And I think Jack Campbell takes a big leap on defense. So it's like, yeah, they have a lot of little things that maybe I've undersold them. DJ Reed as the second corner. I mean, that's a lot of good players.
This is the price of success, though. Like, when you become one of those teams that's just consistently competitive, you're going far in the playoffs every year, you know, they haven't quite gotten to where they want to go. Obviously, they haven't been in a Super Bowl yet. But you often then get the shiny new toy syndrome, right? We did this with the Chiefs for a while. We've kind of just stopped doing it with them. Like, well, let's just be back in the damn Super Bowl every year until one of these other teams can unseat them. But that's kind of where Detroit finds itself. But, Boone, when we look at the offense, Ben Johnson leaving is a pretty big deal. Like, we can't be sitting here getting excited about the Bears and because Ben Johnson is going there, and then not think there's going to be some drop-off from the Lions' perspective. Maybe not a total brain drain, but how are we feeling about that side of the ball specifically?
Well, it's not just about losing both coordinators. It's all of the position coaches that they brought with them, too, to their new locations, right? Like, there's a lot of coaching talent that left. And I think when Dan Campbell showed up the first time and did his press conference about biting people's kneecaps off, everyone underestimated him, and he went out and he hired a lot of former players as coaches, and people questioned that move, and it worked out pretty damn well, right?
Yeah.
So maybe he can do that again. But I do think that, and Ben hit on a lot of this stuff, I am pretty concerned about the mounting red flags, right? Like when you talk about the offensive line, it's not just any offensive lineman that left, it's Frank Ragnow who left, who PFF's second best center in grades last year. Kevin Zeitler, still a very good guard. He was PFF's 3rd best guard last year in their grades. So these are big pieces and big shoes to fill on that offensive line. And I think having that strong offensive line, having that strong environment really helps Jared Goff. And maybe I'm more down on Jared Goff than some people because he is a veteran quarterback. He's certainly figured things out along the way here. But he has also been very much helped by having Sean McVay as a play caller when he was with the Rams, and then having Ben Johnson as a play caller with the Lions. And now we don't know what John Morton's going to be. Maybe he's going to be a great one. It's definitely possible. We questioned last year when Dave Canales left the Buccaneers, oh no, Dave Canales is leaving, and then they get Liam Cohen, and the offense was even better, right? That's still possible for sure. But I'm worried about a bunch of that stuff. I'm also worried about the fact that last year, Jared Goff, you know, he has big splits in terms of indoors and outdoors. Last year, only 3 outdoor games. Didn't play his first outdoor game until week 9. This year, 2 of the first 3 are outdoors. I think he plays 6 total outdoors. So I'm a little bit concerned about that stuff too, on top of losing the coaching, on top of the offensive line. But I mean, if we want to talk fantasy briefly, it's hard to go against some of the talent that they have at the skill positions, right?
Yeah.
And I think that the high-end guys like Jameer Gibbs and Amon St. Brown, those guys are going to be fine. I do have some concerns about some of the other players like David Montgomery, Sam Laporta. Is he going to be able to carve out enough targets in order to be a truly great fantasy tight end like he was a couple years ago? Jameson Williams, the talent looks like it's there, but another guy, is he going to be able to do it? Is he going to have the volume to be a really great fantasy player? So maybe I have more concerns than you do, Ben, but yeah, I'm a little bit worried about them taking a step back.
Listen, as a Vikings fan, I'm happy to have all the concerns about the Lions. And I should say, look, it could also just be me because at BetMGM, the Lions are the most bet team by total tickets, right? So the public is still betting on them. I just felt the national discourse. I don't feel like I've heard as much about the Lions this offseason.
I think there's skepticism, and some of it is warranted. And like we brought up the name John Morton. He might be like quietly the most important person in in this division, maybe in the entire league, because he's replacing this massive figure in Ben Johnson, who everybody respects. And Nate, we've had like kind of some skepticism of what he might bring to the table. I don't really know how instructive that 2017 Jets offense is with like Bryce Petty and the boys back there. But he again is a very critical figure this season.
He is, and that's the thing too, is we had some, again, this is narrative concerns where we're just reading interviews, looking at preseason reports and everything, or I should say training camp reports. And we're looking at Jameson Williams saying we have more freedom in this offense. And we're like, is that a good thing?
Yeah.
Is that a good thing? And just being a receiver coach, he's only called plays the 1 year. And I mean, that's just, again, you just don't know what information is that worthy of data usage at all. Like, is that sticky at all? I don't think it is, because if you look at the personnel, not very great when he was with the Jets. But still, I do have some concerns because I think Ben Johnson was so good with it. I actually, on our preview pod, when I even talked about the Lions, I was kind of had the same arguments you did. It's just now over the last few weeks. And so that's why I just don't know which way I'm going with them. It's like gut instinct or go where I marinate on it. But I think Morton is, I'm not entirely super high on him. I'm not. And it's just, I might not be fair to him, but even if I think he's average, that's still a drop off.
Yeah.
You have Dan Campbell to insulate it a little bit, and I do think there's those Sean Payton bones in this offense, which is great. But again, you just don't know. This guy wasn't on the staff the last 3 years, and they promoted him. He's coming from elsewhere. You just don't know.
And 15 wins is tough to replicate, right? So, even if they do take a step back and it's 11 wins, 12 wins, that might be a step back, but they're still going to be a damn good team.
Yeah.
Let's go out of the NFC North for a second here and go to the AFC South. My biggest storyline is this Jaguars makeover / Travis Hunter, because I think Travis Hunter is one of the most compelling figures in football this season. But I also just find this entire Jacksonville situation to be pretty compelling. You mentioned Liam Cohen, Boone. I probably just did not have more fun watching any other offense than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers last year. It was just so well designed. He was pushing all the right buttons in terms of motion and the dynamic feel in the passing game. The run game was tremendous. They got just these big ass holes blown open for Bucky Irving on these gap concepts. And I don't really know how much of that he's going to bring over here to Jacksonville, but I'm certainly excited to see it because, man, you said this earlier, Ben, but Trevor Lawrence, it was really a disaster with Urban Meyer in year one. And then Doug Peterson comes in and we get a little bit credible, but man, it went stale real fast with the Doug Peterson, Trevor Lawrence dynamic. And if there's one thing I'm pretty confident in, I don't think it's going to be stale in Jacksonville this year. Is it going to be good? That's another question, but I don't think it's going to be stale. I do think this offense is going to feel very dynamic, not just because they have Travis Hunter, who I think is going to be more of a full-time offensive player than defensive player. They also have this guy, Brian Thomas Jr., who was electric in year one. Someone that can play all three receiver positions, averaged over 3 yards per route run from the slot last year, 10 yards per target on screen plays. And again, now they're dropping in the number 2 overall pick in Travis Hunter, who I'm not going to say he's going to be better than Brian Thomas Jr. in year one, but I think we're going to get to a point where if he truly develops into the receiver that I think he can be, it's going to be kind of close between those two guys. And that's just the receiver position. Right. They also have an interesting backfield. Defense, we'll see about that. So, Boone, when we look at this Jaguars offense, is this one of those situations where it comes out hot, or do we think we need to be patient over the course of the year?
I think when you're talking about the receivers, those guys I think are just going to hit the ground running. I think BTJ is so good that he's going to continue what he was doing last year. And I think we talked about this on one of the shows recently. why aren't people talking about Travis Hunter more? Like, is it just the fact that he has this shoulder injury in the preseason, so he's missed some time, so he's not out there putting up like highlight clips, and we're watching his ADP just rise? Because
nobody
normally,
cares about the AFC South, bro. I'm telling you,
for sure.
We can't even get people to talk about the number 1 overall pick who's in that division, and we certainly can't get them to talk about the number 2 overall pick in that division.
I feel like fantasy-wise, people are talking about the backfield more than they're talking about Travis
I know.
Hunter.
It's like, don't get
Spoilers.
me. You miss me with these like Tank Bigsby, Travis Etienne debates. I want to talk about Travis Hunter.
Yeah, totally. Now, one thing that I do question is we're hearing a lot from the beat writers about how awesome these guys are in practice on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah.
And I truly think they are, but it makes me wonder, like you said about the defense, is that also a testament to maybe how bad that defense might be? And is that why these guys are looking uncoverable in practice? It might be. I don't know if anybody has thoughts on the defense there, but that for fantasy would be a really good thing. Let's have that defense not be as great, and let's have these guys in shootouts and putting up big numbers.
I'm a little scared of the defense, and also just scheme-wise too. It seemed sloppy this preseason. Again, it's just preseason, but this is also what I'm hearing too, or at least reading about. That it's just been a little inconsistent on defense, and it's not like sometimes coordinators get hired, and it's like, yeah, we don't know until they call plays, but some have buzz about them.
Right.
This wasn't a guy that had buzz. So that and I'm blanking out his name. I know he's Italian because the first thing he did was
right?
Yes, Campanelli. Thank you. And but coming from Green Bay, and it's just like, and just how it looked in preseason, I'm like, that's not great. Like that's not what I want to see from your first foray out there. I know it's backups and all that, but still, you can see kind of like the underlying stuff of how stuff's getting taught. If your backups can run it, I feel pretty good about the starters running it.
Sure.
And on top of it, not a lot of firepower. I think the linebackers are kind of iffy. I don't think there's a lot in the defensive backfield as well. Like they have okay players outside of Tyson Campbell, but it's not anything that I think is a true needle mover on that back end. I do like the pass rush that they could potentially have. I like Trayvon Walker, and I think he's gonna have I think he was my breakout player for our preview show because number 1 pick that's had 10 sack seasons. I went breakout player with them, but I think he's actually becoming a real player. Like he went from overrated as a number 1 pick to underrated, I think, and now I think he'll be properly rated this year on top of Josh Hines Allen. So I think the defense has interesting parts. I just don't think they have the guy to make it really great. I think the AFC is top heavy overall. I think it's tough in the AFC too. Some of the teams they have to play. I know it's an easy division, but they still have the Texans in the division. It's like, are they going to be able to block the Texans at all? I do think there's an improvement in play caller and everything, but I'm optimistic on the long-term projection of the Jags, but maybe not this season. I think there's just going to be kind of I think the 7.5 over/under line was very fair to them.
It's gonna be a fun team to watch, though.
Oh yeah,
Absolutely.
They're gonna be interesting. I think to your point with that shoulder injury too, right? They also gave up next year's first, right? So it's such a big swing for a player that I think is fascinating. I've been talking to a couple bookmakers because against the spread, right? There's only a couple of skill position players that really would move the needle, right? Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, maybe an offensive lineman here, half a point depending on the team, like the Bucks, Tristan Wirfs. But potentially, he could be like one of the more important players against the spread, right? If he is a number 1 cornerback and a number 1 or 2, right, 1A with Brian Thomas receiver, that could be massive, especially in that offense and defense where we're just saying, well, with the wide receiver core behind Brian Thomas, there's not that much, and Travis Hunter, and the defensive backfield behind Tyson Campbell, there's not that much there. Like that's a lot of value. I think 7.5. It's probably the right win total. There are some bets on them to win the division at BetMGM. They're the second choice in the AFC South. I think people looking at them as opposed to the Colts maybe as that potential breakout team. But yeah,
I can't imagine why.
And to that defense, though, like you guys were alluding to, last year a league low 9 turnovers forced, right? So just not that much in the defense from betting perspective. Maybe that's good for the overs, right? Good offense, bad defense leads to some overs early in the season.
I'm also on snap count watch. I looked this up this week. Since 2013, the unofficial record, because it's just True Media's data through PFF, unofficial record for total snaps, offense, defense, and special teams is 1,303 by Malcolm Jenkins in 2014. He also is second, too, which is pretty crazy. But I'm just looking. Does he play 1,200 snaps? Is it 1,000 snaps? It's a lot of workload for someone that's below 190 pounds and already got hurt.
Right.
Yeah.
We gotta remember, like that was my big only negative on him is he doesn't have the greatest frame and size, but I do think he's one of the greatest athletes I've ever seen. So I just want it to work.
Yeah.
He's
Totally.
such a cool player. So
Reading the tea leaves, it does seem Liam Cohen saying 80% on offense. I think he's going to be just more of like a playmaker on defense. I don't think he's going to be the number one corner. I think he's just going to be out there making plays. And what I can't wait for is that first time that he intercepts a pass and then stays out there on offense and then catches a touchdown on the next play. I can't wait for that to happen this year.
Yeah, I'm definitely the type of person that I love like to be imaginative and like these things that we've never seen before, and that is what Hunter is. You know, if he hits, like he will be this two-way player that we just haven't seen before. Like we've seen guys that have been corners first who then moonlight on offense, and it certainly seems like he's going to be the inverse of that. He's going to be a receiver first who moonlights on defense. So just whether that works or not, and is there a point in the season where they just ditch that? You know, like, okay, well, we brought him here to score points, and like that's what really moves the needle. Like, and we have Liam Cohen, and we're trying to fix Trevor Lawrence. Let's just make him a receiver. I'm interested to see if that happens too. So again, just a super fascinating team to discuss and track this season. Let's move into our picks and predictions for this season. We're going to start with MVP. Why not just go for the glamour right at the top? Ben, your MVP pick for this season is?
So going with Brock Purdy.
All right,
For the 49ers. Look,
I
I think we all generally agree there's 4 or 5 guys, right, and also atop the leaderboard that have the best chance and probably will win MVP. But you want to go out on a bit of a limb, and I think the 49ers are really interesting just because of last season, everything that happened, right? 6-11 is not what you consider this Niners team the last 5 years. They still have Super Bowl odds 20-1. They're favored in 15 games this year. They're only underdogs back-to-back week 5, week 6 against the Rams, against the Bucks, and both that is only 1.5-point underdogs. So they're going to be favored, presumably in a lot of games. Our friends at FTN have them winning 11.2 games. Like their over-under is 10.5. Last year they faced the toughest schedule by FPI, and they had, that's a great stat from Warren Sharp, the worst rest disadvantage, minus 21 days in the last 25 years.
What does that mean, like exactly?
So that means, for example, like if they play on a Sunday and their opponent, or they play on a Monday, their opponent plays on a Sunday, then next week it's a -1.
Interesting.
Basically. So over the course of the season, 21 days is a lot, right? That's a lot of like their opponents playing on a Thursday, they're playing on a Sunday, et cetera. So, and despite all that, they were still 13th in DVOA, number 3 net yards per play, and Purdy was 7th in QBR. So, and obviously still concerns this season, right? When is Brandon Ayuk coming back? We thought it was going to be to start the season. Clearly it's not.
Yeah.
I think Kyle Shanahan said week 6, which is a very amorphous, around week 6, sure. This season they have the easiest schedule by opposing season win totals. So again, favored in those 15 games, and they have the 4th best net rest edge, plus 9 days. So last year, very difficult schedule. This year, easier schedule. And ultimately, that doesn't mean they're going to win all those games.
Sure.
But I think if they do, you assume Christian McCaffrey's not playing 17 games. I think if they play well, potentially get the number 1 seed, right? Then I think Purdy's going to get a lot of the credit, and therefore 28-1, 30-1. So I think is a good value bet and also a pick for MVP.
Yeah, and that receiving core, like if Jennings ends up being healthy early in the season, and if Ayuk comes back at any point and gives us anything close to what Ayuk was before, it's a really good group of skill position players. I also think boosting the Brock Purdy thing is he was running the ball a little more last year. You know, he's not Josh Allen, he's not those guys, but hey, he had over 300 rushing yards and 5 rushing touchdowns, which means something, right? You need that narrative and you need the production in order to win MVP, and he's doing it.
Yeah, Purdy's just grown his game. I've always said I'm Brock Gnostic because there are so many arguments in our world about Brock Purdy, and now he's just developed into just like this good quarterback that really provides the element that this offense always needs. You need someone that attacks downfield to create space for everything, and you need the scrambling element, and that's what he does. Like at first was always perfect. Sometimes he was laying stuff. Now he's become such a nice drop back operator that we always just think Shanahan run game. Why have they been investing in their receivers? Where do you think Kyle Shanahan wants to morph this offense to? So it all ties in together. And even with Ayuk and be out, I thought this is me, Luke Farrell signing.
Lean into
second tight end.
Big.
But it gives them at least a little personnel kind of, I keep using this word, but insulates them. Okay, we don't need receivers on the field all the time on 1st and 2nd down. We can have Juszczyk, we can have Kittle, we can have, We can have Luke Farrell as well. It just gives them more looks. It just gives them something until they get the receivers healthy. They figured it out. But I'm with you. I'm high on Purdy this year, and I think also schematically they're doing some cool things too with the straight drop back game, no play action, nothing. They get from under center and drop back, and I think they're going to be on the forefront of more teams doing that this year.
There's some concerns on the offensive line about
course.
some of those guys. No, but I think I'm
Always
saying that
is.
because of what you're pointing out. Shanahan does a really good job kind of scheming around it and
I've
overcoming
learned my
it.
lesson with always going like, well, their O-line's not great. It's Shanahan.
Yeah.
He's the best at kind of saying like, I can make this work with scheme, and he's proven it. Like that's not just me, touting him. It's like he has proven he can do that. So that's why it's not fair to a lot of other analysis on other teams, but I wave away always their O-line stuff until we get to the playoffs.
Yeah.
But for regular season, I wave it away for the most part.
Ben, I like you framing it in the narrative here too, because that is kind of what needs to happen from the MVP standpoint. I think last year, to Nate's point, we saw more get put on Brock Purdy's shoulders if you were actually watching the Niners, but people weren't watching them as closely because they weren't that good of a team last year. So this year could really be the moment where if they take that step forward, they get back on track. We're talking about, people are noticing that Purdy is taking the heavier burden from the offensive perspective. But Nate, give me your MVP pick.
This is me trying to make us. This is the same thing. We know who the heavy hitters are in the MVP. So this is me having a little fun with it. But this is one I can see the narrative building and also the team success. Jordan Love, quarterback for the Packers. He's 25-1 right now. Last year he battled 3 injuries, and it's one of these things. As you watch him more, it's like it's very much the Goodwill Hunting. It's not your fault. It's not your fault. And he's hurt. He's not getting sacked at all. And yes, he plays an aggressive style, but that is the offensive system, and he's great with it. They're gonna be a run heavy team. That is again the offensive system, but they have a good O-line with some depth. Is it the perfect O-line? No, but I think it is good. In case of an injury happens, they have guys that can step in, which matters. They have a quarterback that doesn't get sacked, even with an O-line that wasn't great last year. Gets explosive plays. This team last year was 3rd in suplex rate, which is what I look at, which is success rate plus explosive play rate, formerly known as sex rate. But from week 10's on,
You're like mid-rebranding this stat because
someone called me out on it, and I was like, you know what, I might take it back. I might take it back. But they ranked 3rd in the second half of last year. This is 2 years in a row. This super young team, as they got healthier, they grew as the season went along. 4th in weighted DVOA on offense, 6th in success rate, 8th in passing success rate, 1st in explosive pass rate. They play a style that I think modern NFL offenses should play, and he is going to be the conductor of that, and it's the Packers. The Packers win games. They're going to get a lot of eyeballs. They're going to get a lot of cred, and who's the conductor of all of it, especially if he has highlight throws that I think Love can do. Really, it's more about the defense and how much they can hold up. But I am pretty high on the Packers, but I'm high on Love anyways, as long as he stays healthy, because that's the big thing as well.
And I'll throw in, so my writer just wrote an article, Michael Fiddle, on this. He had 4 Packers bets. One of them was them to be the last undefeated team at 13-1, partially because they're favored in their first 8 games and 10 of their first 11. He also had Jordan Love MVP at 25-1. Just again, like it is a narrative. I think we think of them, right? That Niners game a couple years ago, they're right there. Mm-hmm. He's played well when he's been healthy. That's the big thing. But they're a good team. Matt LaFleur, good coach. They're going to be in all these games. It's just how much, does he put up those numbers? How many games do they win? But I think it's going to be right there. I like it.
Boone, I feel like people are watching this right now, and they're like, what are these guys talking about? Like Jordan Love? Because it feels like the public is pretty down on Jordan Love, but how much of that is just based on overreactions to what the team was last year, injuries, being the most run-heavy team in neutral situations last year?
Well, he's another one like Travis Hunter, where I think the fact that he's hurt and missing time in the preseason has no one talking about him, and I think that could actually help his cause, right?
Yeah,
because if he comes out and they start hot, all of a sudden now that is going to be leading the way in all the shows. So I am excited about this team. They have so much talent, the great coaching, and Jordan Love is a better player than what we saw last year. It was really unfortunate that he got hurt early in the season and we never got to see the version of him that he could be. I think there's a good chance, as long as he stays healthy, like Nate said, that this could be the year that we do see that best possible version of him.
Yeah, and again, this is an offense that I think people are overlooking and over-indexing what we saw last year, where they were 32nd in neutral pass rate. Like, they have good pass catchers. Matthew Golden, first-round wide receiver, I think should be able to hit the ground running, literally. A lot of downfield routes, which this team needs to create that space. Jaden Reed, when he's healthy, is a good player. It wouldn't be a Yahoo Sports program without a Tucker Kraft mention.
Yep, there we go.
I think they've got a lot in that
Check the
passing
box.
game to get Jordan Love to that next level from a national perspective. But Boone, we've had a Brock Purdy mention. We've had a Jordan Love mention. Why don't you just bring the boring level of this segment up a little bit with your pick here?
Yeah, I don't know if I missed the memo here. These guys are having so much fun with it.
Yeah,
and I know who you're going to pick too.
you
I
have
think
one
both
for
of
me.
You
us.
didn't read his MVP hipster picks? Or,
I went with the guy that won it last year, Josh Allen. Who? Yeah. I think it's going to be Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson again. I think we're going to see the same thing that happened last year. And I know last year, if you were just basing it on the numbers, that Lamar Jackson probably would have been the one that would have taken it home. And yet we know it's not just based on that. Josh Allen, it looks like this season, I think we're going to see some breakouts from some of the guys that they didn't get that much from the last couple of years in terms of Keon Coleman and Dalton Kincaid. And I'm not looking at Harmon, but I know he's probably making a face because we've talked about this before.
I glanced at him as soon as you said it.
But I believe in the narrative that we're hearing out of the beat writers from their teammates. Keon Coleman, they're saying night and day from what he was last year, that he showed up this year. It's a different player entirely. They're talking about how he's learning how to actually box out these DBs and come down with the ball. We're seeing those highlights in practice. It's going to come out this year. He's only 22 years old. This guy can develop. It used to be that, hey, a receiver doesn't necessarily hit the ground running. Yeah. He needs a couple of years. Well, here's a guy that last year when he showed up, it was pretty evident that he was going to need to figure out how to win in the pros. It's a great culture in Buffalo. I think he's going to come on this year. And Dalton Kincaid, last year before he got hurt, on pace for over 100 targets. There was all these plays where Josh Allen just missed him. I don't know why that connection wasn't quite there like it could have been. Another offseason for those two, and another position where we used to talk, well, tight end going into his third season, here comes a breakout. Not everybody's Malik Neighbors and Brock Bowers, and they show up and they're superstars right away. So I think that's going to help elevate this offense. We already know Josh Allen's Superman. He's going to score double-digit touchdowns, anywhere from 10 to 15 or 16 probably on the ground. I know it's so boring, guys. I know I'm a Bills fan, and you could say it's a homer pick, but I think he's going to repeat and take home the MVP again.
I have nothing against it,
yeah,
because I think I had the Bills as my number one offense going into this year, and it's because Josh Allen and a good offensive line and a good run game with him, and he's got full control of that offense now. It's kind of cool to really see him grow mentally as well. So I know I'm supposed to maybe provide some pushback, but I'm like, no, I totally get it, because it's Josh Allen. He's turned into one of the guys. He is one of the greatest players I've even seen, actually, I'll say.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's an MVP candidate every single year. Him, Lamar, and Patrick Mahomes to me, and Burrow I'll throw it in. But come on, check out that defense. But I do think with Josh Allen, though, totally get it. I mean, he's at the top of his game right now. So yeah.
And people probably don't talk about the offensive line enough. I think they're one of the better lines in the league.
Absolutely.
And the fact that the continuity, too, right? Bringing back all five starters, that's so huge for the offensive line.
I keep jinxing them every time I talk, because I go hey, they've
Yeah,
been the
should we find some
healthiest
wood to knock on here? Yeah,
I keep saying that. I go, they've been the healthiest offensive line 2 years in a row. And the first time I said it on a pod, I think Spencer Brown got hurt that day. And he's good now. But I was like, okay. But it is a stat. And that's the thing, too. I was like, I've been... Is it something they're doing, or is the other shoe going to drop too? That's always in the back of my head too. But it has been, the continuity of the offense line is such a great point, because that's what the run game is. Yeah, exactly.
I believe this is wood down here, so
Yeah,
we're
no,
going to
he's got
knock on
He's
this
got it.
table.
That's a big part of it.
Don't do that to Boone. I would say, just from a betting perspective, they're fascinating, right? Only NFL team favored in all 17 games this season. Obviously high atop the Super Bowl odds. Either the favorite, co-favorite right there. Same thing, Josh Allen, MVP. Fifth easiest schedule by NFL season opposing win total. So they're playing a lot of easy teams. And with those lines, too, right? We talk about the Niners favored in 15 games. The Bills aren't only favored in all their games, they're favored by at least 8.5 points in 4 of the first 5, right? So, and they're favored by 5.5 points, I think, in 10 or 12 games. They're favored by a ton. It's a little bit like that college week 1 matchup with Ohio State, Texas, all right? You got one-on-one with Lamar Jackson week 1. So that is a massive, massive game for, obviously, playoff seeding and everything, but also for MVP.
Not that you need me to give any credence to why Josh Allen can be the MVP of the league here, but I think the way that the reason this is a great pick is that Boone's prediction about Keon Coleman and Dalton Kincaid breaking out. That doesn't even have to happen. Like they don't even have to have true breakouts for Josh Allen to win MVP because they can just attack you in so many different ways on offense. But I do like the idea of like Coleman being able to move around the formation more and maybe being a little bit more of a dynamic player. But I will get into my MVP pick here, and I mean this is like hipster adjacent, but I think Jalen Hurts could win MVP this year because like quick and dirty way to figure out who's going to be the MVP of the league. Quarterback on a number 1 seed team.
Yep.
And the Eagles should be the odds-on favorite to come out of the NFC. They won the damn Super Bowl last year. They have some losses on defense, and we know that defense year over year is a little bit less sticky than offense. And, you know, like, let's just say there's some issues on the back end. They're still kind of trying to figure out who's going to be that cornerback, too. It's a very young secondary overall. Again, they lost Josh Sweat. They lost Milton Williams. They always kind of have guys in the pipeline there. But, again, let's say that defense is the 7th best unit this year, the 8th best unit instead of the 1st best unit in the league. And Jalen Hurts has to take on more of that burden. And even if, yes, he has great weapons around him, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Saquon Barkley in the backfield, the credit goes to the quarterback.
Yep.
Like, even if, again, we can sit here on the outside and say, well, yeah, but he's got those guys. Well, those guys are still going to help him produce the numbers that he's going to need to get into this stratosphere. The tush push is back, so those touchdown numbers will be there. Again, Nate, like it seems like a hipster pick, but
It's not.
it's not really.
No. I mean, I almost want to put them in. I shouldn't say in pen. This is totally jinx it, but like as a Final Four team, like I just because the NFC, I just keep saying it. NFC's wide open, other than the Eagles, and you brought up like, hey, they are replacing some defensive parts, but what's nice is I've already seen the guys that they're replacing them with, and they're guys that have performed well in the second half of last year. Ajomo and Hunt replacing Sweat and Milton Williams, like you said. And then on offense, the guard changes is like the one hang-up is Tyler Steen now at right guard, who I do like. And again, he's been in the Jeff Stoutland University for 3-4 years now. But at left guard, Landon Dickinson getting hurt, which is like, I think he's gonna be playing this year. He's not out for the entire year. But, you know, just got Jalen Hurts with interior pressure, can kind of get a little up and down. But you're absolutely right. I think this is their division, their conference to lose. And, again, he's going to get a lot of credit. I think the passing game he's getting more comfortable with it, so he gets those counting stats as well. But he's always going to have the rushing stats, you know, the rushing touchdowns that are just going to help carry up at least the box score narrative, you know, that voters look at. So, yeah, wins, everything. I get, you know, totally get it. I'm high on the Eagles this year, even if they have lost a couple parts.
And they're favored in 15 games, right? To your point, plus 325. They are the favorite to be the number 1 seed. I think the Lions plus 650. So a little of a gap between those two teams as well in the NFC. It's a great offense, right? Like, yeah, they should be right there. And Hurts 6th best odds, 18-1 to win MVP.
And I think we can tell from what these guys are saying. You wanted to say, you know, hipster adjacent. He's a lot closer to Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson as an MVP candidate than he is to their pick.
That's definitely true. Exactly. So
MVP in real football, there's different discussions too.
100%. All right, let's get into our Super Bowl team and score prediction for the 2025 season. Ben, I'm coming to you.
We just talked about the Bills. Bills 35, Lions 31. Bills favored in all 17 games. They've been so agonizingly close. They're right there. They know exactly what they need to do. It's just, can they get it done? Lions, I think, again, really good team. They'll probably be them, the Eagles, in the NFC Championship. Lions get to the Super Bowl. Bills get it done. First Super Bowl.
Well, hey, not a bad prediction there. You break the heart of one fan base. The Lions get close again, but you make Justin Boone a very happy man here.
Yeah,
so why don't we just continue the theme here, Boone? Why don't you give? I wonder which team you're going to pick to win the Super Bowl this year.
You know where I'm going with this one. Bills 30, Vikings 27.
Yeah, okay.
Maybe that's the more interesting side of this because we just talked about Josh Allen.
Right. Let's get into that.
We know that, you know, I think the Bills offense could hit another level, all that sort of stuff. On the Vikings side, though, let's look at this team. Last year, 14 wins. They do it with Sam Darnold at quarterback. And I am sorry, Sam Darnold, like before he got to Minnesota, before he attached his wagon to Kevin O'Connell and that offense, not a lot going on in that career. And that just shows you how great of a play caller Kevin O'Connell is, how great of a coach he is, that he can get that out of his quarterbacks. And he's done that basically with every quarterback that's played there, even the backups that have had to come in, like the Josh Dobbs and the Nick Mullins. They've all played very well in that system. So now we're going to get J.J. McCarthy, the hand-picked first-round selection from a year ago, who got hurt, didn't get to play last season, but has been spending this whole year learning the offense, meeting with Kevin O'Connell. And now he gets to step in behind an offensive line that they have totally improved, right? Will Fries, Ryan Kelly, Donovan Jackson, their first-round pick. They have rebuilt the interior of that offensive line. The weapons there, Justin Jefferson. TJ Hawkinson, somebody that I think people have kind of forgotten about. He was injured last year. He comes back healthy this year. He's one of the better tight ends in the league, right? Jordan Addison's going to miss some games with a suspension, but a great number 2 option. And we saw in the preseason, McCarthy finding him all over the field. That defense, Brian Flores, we talked about them earlier. The defense has added pieces, Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave. Like, there's so much to like about this Vikings team. 14 wins last season. I don't think it's that crazy to suggest that with what I think is an upgrade at quarterback, an upgrade on the line, an upgrade on defense, that they're going to be right in the mix and potentially be a Super Bowl contender.
And they upgraded the weakest parts of their team, which was the interior offensive line. And they needed just more true talent on the interior defensive line. And they feel so good about it that they're trading away depth, which means it's like, hey, you guys are feeling really good. And honestly, Brian Flores is apparently the boogeyman of the preseason. Like, the Patriots were talking about game planning for practices because they were just so terrified of what he was going against. You see all these preseason reports are like, yeah, McCarthy had a little rough one there, but it's okay. He's going at Flores. We all know this, right? But I'm with you on the Vikings. That's why the NFC North is just so fascinating to me because you ask me a different day, I'm like, no, it's the Packers today. No, it's the Lions for 5 minutes. I just changed. But the Vikings is, I think all of us look at the defense at least being, even if, all right, top 10 is what I think they will be, but they also can do the thing that like Steve Spagnuolo can do, game plan. So once you get to the playoffs, you can make a run. And then on offense, you got a guy that can game plan. You have a better offensive line. So even if McCarthy, again, is average, 18th best quarterback in the NFL, they now have a run game that can insulate him. They have weapons for him. They have a defense. Yeah, so I'm with you on the Vikings optimism, I guess I should say. Maybe you're just rubbing off on me or something.
Yeah, man.
From nostalgia or something.
He's setting us up to be disappointed. Also, have we watched the Vikings in the postseason the past 30 years? So this sets up 30-27. It'll probably be, tied at 27. Vikings have the ball. Some terrible fumble. Bills kick a field goal to win the Super Bowl.
Actually, Bills and Vikings kickers are just going to keep missing. Wide right, wide left. Wide right, wide left. Just going back and forth on it.
But I appreciate the optimism. I'm excited. I'm excited for us to maybe make the Super Bowl.
Nate, give me your Super Bowl prediction.
Yeah, I would say that these two teams are just the most put together offense, defense. I feel comfortable, just a lot of the continuity they have, and I'm going with the Ravens 27, the Eagles 23. Ravens and Bills are kind of catching my eye, much like the same. I heard you guys' arguments with the Bills. The Ravens to me have a defense that might be potentially disgustingly good with a defensive backfield that is veterans. They have versatility in case a guy does get injured. And again, we know injuries happen. That's why you got to kind of look, how can they pivot? And I think, too, the biggest weakness is still a position that can be strength is their linebacker because Roquan Smith wasn't great last year. But I do think that was fitness. So I think he can get his fitness back. But I think they just, too, on the defensive front, they have size. They have Travis Smith. They got Matabike up there that can disrupt plays as well. Then they add Mike Green in the second round, who is a top 10 talent. I mean, what's it called? He really was. Top 15 at worst. The best pass rusher along with Abdul Carter in this draft. He drops because of off-field stuff. He looks the part in the preseason. It's like, oh, yeah, that's why you should have gone in the top 10, Right. Like, keep your head on straight, please. And it's just, like, you drop that in there, and he just can just be an auxiliary rusher. He doesn't have to start. And so they have size, they have versatility, and then we're not even gotten to the offense yet. That's Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry dropping in Keaton Mitchell like they need it. They got pass catchers now, and even if DeAndre Hopkins is on the tail end of his career, he does provide something different that the receiver room hasn't had. I think they didn't really end the season well last year, or the playoffs, I should say. But I just think this team's a juggernaut this year. I'm very high offense, defense, coaching, quarterback. O-line I think is more the sum of their parts than maybe a particular guy. Sure. They still even have a little bit of depth there. It's just there's a lot going for this team. So
there's always something to like about the Ravens, so much so that my Super Bowl pick was also Ravens 31, Eagles 28. Makes me super uncomfortable that the Kansas City Chiefs did not come up in this. No one said Chiefs.
Yeah.
So,
too boring.
I know. Chiefs fans, you can light us up in the comments. That's totally fine, and we probably would deserve it because they'll just go back to the damn Super Bowl again. But man, the Ravens are just so loaded, as you mentioned, and obviously so are the Eagles too, who I have losing the Super Bowl. But man, that Ravens roster, just top to bottom, offense, defense. They even get a new kicker in the mix here who's looked good this preseason after some issues with Justin Tucker last year. It is such a good roster and an offense that can truly be dynamic. As a matter of fact, Lamar Jackson had a historic season last year, and Josh Allen's so good that he didn't even win the MVP. So man, yeah, I love the Ravens. I think this could finally be their year where they break through in the postseason.
Lucy's holding the football again.
Yes. What could possibly go wrong? All right, we're going to go to our biggest surprises of the season. Ben, we're going to continue to make the Chiefs fans upset with your surprise for the season.
Yeah, I'm not going to be welcome on Kansas City radio anytime soon. A lot of love in the betting community for the Broncos, right? They're plus 310, now tied, I believe, with the Chargers to win the AFC West. I think the Broncos win the AFC West. I'm going with that. You never want to be necessarily with the public, but I do think there's some respected bettors who like the Broncos over 9.5 wins as well. It really comes down to just their defense, I think, is the biggest thing, right? Number 1 in DVOA last year, projected to be number 1 or number 2. I believe they returned 20 starters on both sides of the ball. They just should be a very solid team, and they play the Chiefs well, even when I'd say they don't have as much talent. Those rosters are pretty even. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes, Bo Nix sways that a bit, but otherwise, they're a really good roster. I think the Broncos are one of the surprises. They make the playoffs by winning the AFC West.
Yeah, I mean, hard to argue. It's a really, really good roster. Nate, we had them as the consensus number 1 defense on football.
I think so. I think or maybe 1-1-2, something of that sort. But yeah.
Yeah, and the offense
is
really,
consensus, I
yeah,
guess.
so,
Not unanimous, I'm sorry.
well,
That's why I don't do All-American teams.
Something like that. Nate, give me your surprise for the season.
I mentioned this at the top of the show when we got into Ben Johnson, but I think the Bears make the playoffs. I think right now they are definitely plus money. I had this looked up, but plus 165 right now to make the playoffs. But yeah, I just like what the defense is. I think the NFC, especially the back end for the wild card selection and that whole division, NFC North, is wide open. And they have a defense I think is good, and I think they have just enough on offense that I think it's one of those when we're going to do the splits post week 6 or post week 9, they end up being like a top 12, top 10 offense. That's a playoff team to me.
Yeah, I like that you frame it that way because there's so much focus on the offense that we don't talk about the defense enough in Chicago. Yeah. And I think, look, the defense played well to start last season, and then they kind of started packing it at the end of the year, understandably, because of how much chaos was going on there. Speaking of chaos, Boone, weird offseason for this team that you're going to talk about here, and you think it is a group on the decline.
I think it's the Steelers. This feels like the last dance, but it feels like the last dance for like all the wrong reasons, like the complete opposite side, right? They're bringing in all these older players. I mean, Darius Slay's 34, Jalen Ramsey 31, Aaron Rodgers 42 in December. Cam Hayward, who's been there for a while, 36 years old. He's such an important piece. What happens if some of these older players decline or get injured? Like, it seems more like this season for Pittsburgh is more like desperation, and they're trying to hold on to something that I just don't know that it's there anymore. So I think that they are going to finally have a losing season, and I think this is probably going to be the end of Mike Tomlin's run in Pittsburgh, which might seem crazy to say. I mean, they have won more games than they have lost every season since 2003, and yet this year I just don't like the vibes. Arthur Smith and Aaron Rodgers as a combination seems so volatile. I'm just picturing as the season goes along, these guys are going to be fighting it out in the media. There's no way that this is going to run smoothly all year long. They haven't done really anything to find a second receiver. I mean, Calvin Austin and Roman Wilson. I mean, no, they brought in Jonnu Smith at tight end, but like...
Hey, they brought in Robert Woods.
I mean, yeah, whatever he has left in the tank, like... There's just so many things that I think are concerning, and you and I have talked about. I just feel like Aaron Rodgers at this point in his career has this sort of like dark cloud that's following him around. We saw it in New York. I think he's bringing it to Pittsburgh, and I think they just didn't have any other choice. Right. They were like held hostage. They had to go with Rodgers, and I think it's going to be a mistake.
You and I are on the same page on this one, and so much so that if I had gotten into the doc before you, that was going to be my surprise prediction for the season. But because you took that great one, I'll go with kind of like a weird one here that does have a finality to it. I think the NFC South is going to be the most fun division in the NFL this year, and I think the Carolina Panthers win the division this year. This is actually, I think, when we did a bold predictions pod at the Super Bowl, Nate, this was my bold prediction, was that the Panthers win the South, and everything that's happened since then has only like hardened my belief that I think they can pull it off this year. One, just I do think this division is going to be really fun. I think the Bucks like might regress a little bit on offense, especially because now they've got Tristan Wirfs banged up. You got Chris Godwin. When is he coming back? Probably like October. Jalen McMillan is going to miss a large chunk of the season, and they're still trying to figure out that defense. But I do think they will be a good unit. Emeka Egbuka is going to make the offense run a little bit there with Baker Mayfield, so they'll still be fun to watch. The Falcons with Michael Penix, I think whether it's good throughout the course of the season or not, is definitely going to be fun to watch, especially because that defense is going to give up production. Then there's the Saints. But then we've got the Carolina Panthers, where I do think this is a team on the rise. Bryce Young in the back half of last year, I really believe in what I saw, that's a guy that can be a solid starting quarterback at worst. And maybe there's another step coming for him. Tedero McMillan being there just could be the straw that stirs the drink, really slots everybody else into a comfortable role. They've got a good offensive line. Again, we'll see what they bring on defense. It can't be worse than it was last year. So I do think the Panthers win the NFC South this year, and that is a really fun division to watch. Let's get into our biggest disappointments for the 2025 NFL season. Ben, maybe let's bury the Steelers a little bit further,
no.
huh?
Yeah, look, I feel better you guys both are on the same page here, right? So I just think Steelers win total 8.5. They have gone over their win total 5 straight seasons, right? As we say, Mike Tomlin, 8.5, boom, hammer the over. I just think they're only favored in 6 games. They have a really easy early slate, right? So I think we might see some momentum build. They're playing Jets, Seahawks, at Patriots, that Vikings overseas, bye, and the Browns. They're then underdogs in 7 of their last 9 games. And at some point, there's going to be some potential injury with Aaron Rodgers. We haven't seen that track record of 40-plus-year-old quarterbacks play very well. And like you said, there's not a lot behind DK Metcalf on offense, too. Same thing on defense. They've had the contract issues, both Cam Hayward, TJ Watt. So there's just a lot there. It feels like a team that should have pressed reset a year or 2 ago and is going to be forced to. I just think that's going to be a team. We're going to talk about them regardless, but I think it's less going to be them making the playoffs and more like, hey, why didn't this go so well?
They created that 7 seed just for the Steelers to get it. Right. That's the Steelers seed. That's why they did it. Steelers are going to be just fascinating.
Yeah.
Just a car wreck that I can't turn away from. That might still win 9 games, but who knows?
Yeah, passive-aggressive. That'll be the theme of the Pittsburgh Steelers offense with Aaron Rodgers and Arthur Smith, as you mentioned, Boone. Nate, who is your biggest disappointment for the 2025 season?
We made a pre-draft or a pre-doc trade
right
here, so I took this one from you for a team to be named later. No, I went with the Rams, and this is more. If you asked me a month ago, I'd be like, "What? No, you like the Rams this year? You're Devontae Adams. Let's go.
Yeah.
All systems go. Terrence Ferguson. Let's do this." It's just a 36-year-old quarterback with a back, a left tackle with blood clots. That's scary to me. That's just really scary to me. And even if Sean McVay can dial it up for Jimmy G, it's just that there's a cap to Jimmy G, and it's a run game that is very, 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 very efficient, but it's not explosive. So you need a quarterback that opens things up. And so if Stafford just misses any time, I just keep, for the 40th time, I'll mention how wide open the NFC is. You miss 4 games, 3 games. All right, well, now we can't make that up because everybody's in that kind of glut of the middle there. So it's just one of these teams that I'm still marinating on as far as exactly how I feel about them.
Yeah.
But I think, again, this might just be a personal disappointment. But it's just a team that a few months ago I was super like, God, this offense is going to be sick. I even just did it a month ago, top 10 offensive show. And now just over time, I'm like, all right, I'm getting a little scared now. I'm setting myself up for disappointment, so anything else is just going to be great.
Well, the fact of the matter is, if we get to week 10 and we're watching Jimmy Garoppolo start games, even if they're getting, like you said, getting by with him, that's a disappointment.
Exactly.
Because this team wants to win the Super Bowl this year. And they've set up, even defensively, like, they're supposed to be a heavy pass rush team because they can play with the lead, and, you maybe don't deep fry our secondary. But if they're not playing with those leads, the house of cards starts to fall down here pretty quickly. Boone, we've talked about your team that you're going to pick here a little bit, but continue to make the case for why this team will be disappointing.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just recap all of the things we said earlier. I don't want to bury the Lions too much because I don't think they're going to be a bad team, but I just think we're not going to get the version of the Lions that was ascending the last few years and heading towards what we thought was going to be a Super Bowl appearance. Haven't quite gotten there yet, but losing the guys on the offensive line and having to figure out that interior offensive line, losing so many coaches, not just the coordinators, but position guys as well. I'm a little bit worried that we're going to see them take a step back with Jared Goff, not having Ben Johnson calling plays there. There are just mounting things. And if it was any one of those, I would wave it off. But because there's so many, I think we're going to see them fall back to maybe 11 wins, maybe 10 wins. And if that happens, that's a disappointment based on where they were last year, even if they are still in the playoffs.
Yeah, no doubt. And like Nate keeps saying, this NFC is tight. It's going to be competitive, which is why my team is also in the NFC here. Washington Commanders, I think, are going to be disappointing this year. If again, it's based on expectations. Last year, you go to the NFC Championship game, you expect to get better with your second-year quarterback, second year of a head coach, and I think there are way more paths to this team being worse than they were last year than better. Look, their bet is basically Jaden Daniels is all that matters. Again, he's a guy that is 5th in MVP odds right now. Like, he better be that good, because otherwise I think there's a lot of holes on this team. I like the Laramie Tunsil trade. I like them adding Josh Connerly in the draft. Other than that, I'm not that big of a fan of what they did in the offseason. They had a lot of older players. It's the oldest team in the NFL. Year 2 of Cliff Kingsbury and Jaden Daniels. I know this is just like archaic analysis that nobody says anymore, but what if teams have all offseason to prep for this unit that maybe caught them a little bit off guard? It's not quite the same as like RG3 in that cursed second season, because Jaden's not coming off an injury and everything like that, but teams definitely had the jump on that offense in year 2 of it. So maybe Cliff has expanded the playbook, but I look at the personnel on offense. There's a lot of guys that need to be catered to. Debo Samuel needs role catering at this point. They don't really have another perimeter wide receiver. Oh, by the way, your number 1 wideout, we're taping this on late August right now. He's still not in training camp. We saw this last year with Brandon Ayuk. Shows up late because of the contract holdout. He doesn't play to his capability. If McLaurin is not that guy, I start to get really worried about where this offense is. So could the Cowboys be the second best team in the NFC East? Very possible. Could all these other NFC contenders really get at the Commanders' heels? I think that is very possible this year, unfortunately, even though I really do like Jaden Daniels. So I hate to say anything negative about Jaden Daniels' team, but man, there's a lot of concerns now.
I think we've kind of like caveated it a lot. It's like, I think Jaden's going to look better and do a lot more. He's going to improve like most young quarterbacks do. I just think around him is just going to be, it's just, I'm not really optimistic about the defense at all. And also they're like, we have to remember last year, Dak Prescott was hurt in their division last year. The Giants were a nothing burger last year. Giants are telling everybody they think they're winning the Super Bowl without Jackson Darts looking, apparently. But I'm just saying that they're more competitive in that division, and they're playing a harder schedule this year, and they might not have 4th down. And I'm just all these things can be waved away. It's like, well, we're getting better too. Yeah, we're good on 4th down. That's why we were so good on 4th down last year. But it's also in the back of my mind for every time I talk about Commanders, it's like, all these things are adding up now, and now these are questions, like real questions I have. So it's just a team. Again, they didn't do enough, I think, especially on defense, especially up front. It's who's going to get after the passer, and I think they'll just get blown away on the ground. And NFC's got a lot of offenses that can pound the rock on them.
Yeah, and disappointment's just based on expectations. And expectations, like I said, for the Lions or for the Commanders, they're so high going into this season. It's going to be very, very difficult for them to match that or beat it.
That's a good little caveat to end this segment. It's just based on expectations. It's just based on expectations. Let's finish this up with a little fantasy talk here. Nate, Boone, and myself have 3 picks here for the next 2 segments. And Ben, I'm going to let you be the judge of who makes the best case on this
Beautiful.
one. So, Nate, get us started here with player most likely to win you a title.
I'm going with Falcons receiver Drake London. I feel I could just kick it over to these guys because they can make the case better than me. I just think it's going to be a hyper-focused passing game on him. I think Penix likes him. He knows where his bread is buttered. Also think Mooney's been banged up. Are we really going to Ray McLeod? And I also think this offense, they're fine auxiliary players, but just fantasy-wise. I also think this offense is not conducive to a lot of tight end success. I think it's more of a role-playing role as far as the passing scheme. So even if they want to get Kyle Pitts going, I think it's selective games he gets going. It's going to be a run-first offense or a very efficient run game, even with Caleb McGarry gone. But I just think Drake London is just going to get so many targets. There's chemistry. I keep making the joke. He's coming for Rob Moore's 208 target record. Like, I just really think it's just – remember, this is the offense that hyper-focused on Cooper Kupp. And Drake London does a lot of the same things Cooper Kupp does. Works from the slot as a bully on the inside. So, yeah, Drake London, I think, can easily outkick his ADP.
When you get to this point in the offseason, I feel like I'm saying the same stats over and over. But still, last year, quarterback play got a little better. Drake London, the 5th best fantasy receiver on a per-game basis. And then we saw that sample at the end of the year, the 3 games with Penix, led the league in targets and was tied as the wide receiver 1 overall. PPR, 23.1 points per game. So, yeah, I'm right there with you. totally could lead the league in targets this year. He's going to put up a massive total. A great second-round pick. One of the players that I have the most shares of this season. I love that call.
To Nate's point, why is Drake London going to be this guy? Subscribe to the Yahoo Fantasy Forecast.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
basically,
yes,
any episode,
yes, right.
and we'll probably have told you about it at some point. Boone, give me your pick. Player most likely to win you a title.
So there was a time, I don't think you can do it anymore, but there was a time like a month or so ago where in drafts, I was getting a great player in the first round. In the second round, I'd grab Drake London at the end of the second. At the beginning of the third, I would get this guy, Chase Brown. But both London and he now have moved way up in the second round. And I've even seen, and I have it ranked this way, I have London as my 12th overall player. That's where I have him.
Right
and
there.
Chase Brown is not far behind. We saw it last season. It was weird that it took a Zach Moss injury in order to get Chase Brown into that spot. But after the first month, when Zach Moss was out of the picture, Chase Brown, from that point on, RB7 in fantasy points per game. This offseason, the coaching staff has just been saying over and over, he is a focal point of the offense. And their OC actually came out and said he's going to be a household name at the end of this year. You love to hear that. I think there is a path for him to contend for RB1 overall potentially in fantasy. At worst, top 3, top 5. He's going to be in that conversation. A great fantasy pick still in the second round.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I tried to name him my breakout player, and then I canceled myself for because it's like he already had 1,100 total yards. It's like, yeah, that's not. But household name is how I feel too, because that offense, even as a pass catcher, he gets juiced up. But it's not those empty calorie pass catches. It's first downs, successful plays, because Joe Burrow just has full control, and it's touchdown, check down. All right, I got these 2 receivers. Look at all the soft coverage. He gets those cheap little cheapies. Those add up. And I think he's a better runner than even I gave credit for. He was a fun study for me this offseason, and the preseason he looked good. And also, I like the offensive line coach the Bengals hired. I know the offensive line gets so much flack there, but I actually do think they have more beef, and they're going to be more sound than they've been in the past with the new offensive line coach, Scott Peters.
You know, we haven't gone for clickbait and talked Cowboys yet, so I'll go ahead and
There we go.
with this one. But seriously, like, George Pickens has been my pick as the most mispriced player in fantasy football all throughout the course of the offseason. And this is a player I've been a little bit skeptical on at times early in his career, but last year I think he took a big step forward in reception perception, 72.8% success rate versus man coverage, 77% against press. Like, those are really good starting X receiver numbers. So he already kind of had that individual breakout. And it wasn't consistent over the course of the season because he's doing some George Pickens stuff. But this year with the Cowboys, not only is he going to play with the best quarterback play of his entire career, best offensive environment, he's in a perfect role in what should be a really pass-heavy offense. And yes, of course, CeeDee Lamb is the alpha dog there. He will continue to be the gravitational force of that passing game. But the way that you can get 2 receivers like inside the top 10 in fantasy is you have a very pass-first offense, and you got concentrated targets and a lot of touchdowns going to that second guy. I think George Pickens is going to score a lot of touchdowns this year. I think it will be concentrated between Pickens and Lamb. And lastly, like, again, we just saw this with T. Higgins last year. I think we could see a similar situation where George Pickens is the T. Higgins to CeeDee Lamb's Jamar Chase. So just so many different factors working in his favor. Again, this is someone who we finally got him inside the top 30 receivers in fantasy consensus rankings. I have him as a top 20 guy. So big value where you can take him in drafts. So, Ben, those are your 3 cases. Who made the best argument?
So first of all, I like all 3 picks as well. So, you know, everyone did a great job. Participation trophy. I think I would go with Drake London also because, one, Justin kind of made the point. He agreed.
You guys started arguing for each other's picks. I'm like, wait, what are we doing here?
You're too nice.
I think that's part of it. Chase Brown, only concern as well with that Bengals offensive line, right? Which also leads to potentially, does Joe Burrow get injured again? And then that completely changes the offense. And George Pickens, hasn't been able to stay on the field, whether injury or other factors.
Yeah.
And so in Dallas, of all places, I don't know, that's going to be the best place
It's
to
a quiet
stay.
little, what do you mean? A quiet little
Exactly.
town? Nobody's
Yeah.
ever talking about them?
So that's my only concern as well with Pickens. But I think he'll have a big season. There'll be plenty of drama in Dallas, but I think he'll have a big season.
I mean, fair enough. When I made him my guy I want in every draft in the Blueprint article that I write every year, I literally ended with, God help me. Like, I'm tying myself to George Pickens. What could possibly go wrong? Speaking of things going wrong, we're going to wrap this up with the player most likely to break your heart in fantasy football. Again, Us three will make the arguments here. Ben, you get to be the judge. Nate, I'm coming to you first. Who is the player most likely to break your heart?
This kind of felt like low-hanging fruit because if you've just been paying attention to Dolphins, any chatter about them, I feel like they're really set up for disappointment this year. But it's Devon Achane, their lead running back. I just don't know what to make of this Dolphins team. He's already banged up, but it hasn't really hindered much of his draft stock, it seems like, at least to me as an outsider on the stuff. So looking at Achane too, I just overall that Dolphins offense and Dolphins team, I'm just like, what are you guys trying to do here? It's always going to be a team that's looking for explosive passes. Last year, they were trying to make it more of an efficient passing game, which actually I think hindered the run game because it became more boom bust. There's a lot of underlying things. Even if I love Achane, the player, he's also just going to be a guy that's always dinged up because of size. It's just a guy that I would not want to overdraft at all because of the worries with the offensive ecosystem, the remade offensive line with a bunch of young guys, questions I have about all of it. So yeah, Achane, I think maybe not live up to the ADP. Might be more of a per game guy, but
I'm really hesitant to chime in now because I feel like last time I might have swayed the voting on it. But yeah, the differences last year in his numbers when Tua was out there and when Tua wasn't out there were incredible. Like to the point where like he was one of the best fantasy backs in the league when Tua was out there, and when Tua wasn't even startable in fantasy.
Yeah.
Like such huge splits. And you worry about that offensive line and Tua's injury history. And if that happens again on top of all the other things you said about that team potentially getting derailed. But I make some of those points because the guy that I want to talk about is also a Dolphins player, and it's Tyreek Hill. And we just talked about guys who are household names, right? And could Chase Brown become a household name? Tyreek is certainly a household name. He is a guy that has helped people win fantasy championships before. And so I think this year he is going way too high because of that, because of all those fond memories of those week winning performances. But going into the season last year, we saw some decline from him, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm sure Harmon can speak better to it, but we saw some decline from him, and it wasn't just because Tua was missing games. It's because he is a speedy receiver on the wrong side of 30, and you start to get a little scared about that on top of all the same things that I just said about Achane with offensive line injuries and Tua injuries and stuff like that. And just this team seems like, of maybe any team, how bad things could get derailed. And could this be kind of like I said about Mike Tomlin? Could this be Mike McDaniel's last season? Because if things go south here, I think it could go really bad. And Tyreek, it's not just the decline in play. It's so many red flags. He's causing problems in press conferences in the preseason. What is he doing? Like, that's supposed to be the time when we're pumping each other up and we're talking about how we're going to go win a Super Bowl. And he's questioning some of the things that they're doing there. Just everything he's doing this year is putting him in a position where I do not think he's going to come through for fantasy.
We previewed the AFC East last week, Matt and I did. And Matt was talking about Tyreek, and I started looking up his numbers. I get access to next-gen stats like participation they're tracking. And there's the average miles per hour in a game. In 2023, he had 9 games where he averaged 9 miles an hour or more, which is like a really significant number that you're averaging 9 miles an hour. Last year, he had 0.
Yeah.
That's scary to me because even if you say, he's going to be more engaged, he's not a guy that stays engaged.
Right.
So if athleticism is dipping and he's already a head case, as we all know, this is not just like inside information. It's a guy it's easy to bet against in my eyes.
You know what I'd love to see? Mid-season, before the deadline, let's see him go to Pittsburgh. Let's grab another old guy, throw him in the mix, and just set it all on
Him
fire.
And Gianna are up there. Him and Ramsey, they're having a great time.
I knew you were about to like wish cast a trade. There's who is trade? Well, yeah, you know what? I guess that would make sense. Speaking of engaged and maybe some effort issues last year, DJ Moore is my pick this year. And look, I am a longtime fan of DJ Moore's game. I thought he was a really good prospect coming to the league. Had some very good seasons with Carolina. Had an awesome season with the Bears in 2023. Had and by his own, he would tell you this, had a terrible season last year. And in a weird way, as we talked about this Bears offense, which we are all excited about, right? We're excited about Ben Johnson. We're excited about Caleb Williams coming in there. But fantasy drafters have just decided, like, yeah, the guy that's the big winner there is DJ Moore. And it's just, again, to me, I think he can have a rebound season, but when we're talking about likely to break your heart, it is relative to ADP and expectations. And this is a guy who goes around pick 60. None of the other Bears pass catchers go inside the top 80 picks. So again, there's a level of certainty that I do not share that DJ Moore will be the top target on this team. That DJ Moore will be the guy that Ben Johnson is scheming into the right positions. I think they will do some fun things with him. I love the idea of like lining up in the backfield. I quite literally said like 3 years ago that I'd love to see DJ Moore in sort of like a Deebo Samuel type way, moving around the formation, yards after catch. That's great, but is that going to give you like consistent fantasy production when you also got to get the ball to Roma Dunze, who's a damn good player, top 10 pick last year, underrated coming out of his rookie season. You talk about those tight ends. I think they could lead the NFL in 12 personnel this year. I think Cole Kmet and Colson Levin will be involved. Luther Burden they take in the second round. There's this Olamide Zacchaeus pop coming out of the preview. Like, we're going down a lot of names here. By the way, DeAndre Swift, right? Like he's a guy who sort of catches the ball sometimes. You know, he's a participant in the passing game. Again, this is a lot of names that get the football, like need to get the football here, need to be kept happy. Is DJ going to get the volume that he needs? And we're also still counting on Caleb Williams, like, taking a step forward. So those are, like, I see that ADP on DJ Moore as a top 20 wide receiver, and there's a lot of ifs that need to go right for that to happen there. So DJ has been a guy I haven't been drafting, and I've just been drafting those later players in Chicago.
They won't shut up about Dunze.
Yeah.
I mean, I love
Me neither.
I love him, so don't get me wrong. So so I'm like, good. But they won't shut up about him. So it's one of these things where it's like,
Nor Burden, too. I mean, that's another.
You read the tea leaves sometimes. It's like that's their guys. Those are their guys, and every coach has their guys, and it's like, we like you, DJ, but hey, Ro, how you doing? Like Luther, you're good. You get hey DJ, yeah. So I think that's just kind of a little bit of this too. It's like, even if DJ, I still like DJ Moore a lot as the player, but I definitely think they're focusing on the other guys.
All right,
I know I'm supposed to not argue for you.
I know.
Thank you.
They're going to DJ Moore. He's getting that ADP justifiably. Yeah.
I think I would go DJ Moore as well. I think Tyreek Hill as well from last season, right? He kind of quit on the team. They have some internal, right, politics, to say the least, about that. I think that's never going to be great for
Internal.
Internal and external. So I think there's a lot of mouths to feed in Chicago, and ultimately, right, that's why fantasy is different than betting, is different than real life. They just want to win the games. In fantasy, you care about which player gets the stats. I think there's too many players there, and DJ Moore is also going to get coverage from number one corners as well. So they love the tight ends too, running backs. I think there'll be a lot to go around there. I'd go DJ Moore.
Love it. All right. Well, that is going to do it for our Yahoo Sports football season preview. We gave you a full rundown of everything you could possibly need to know heading into the 2025 NFL season. MVP, Super Bowl, some fantasy stuff along the way. Appreciate you guys being on the show. Ben, Nate, Justin. It's going to be a hell of a year. So everyone out there, please keep it dialed in to all of our Yahoo Sports content. And special shout out to all of our producers behind the scene. Just a ton of great people just completely locked in here, putting it together, keeping us on the tracks, which if you watch this whole show, you'd know that we definitely need that sometimes. There are four bros who like to do a lot of talking about football, but that's because it is a great game that we're all excited about. So make sure you check us out on the Yahoo Fantasy Forecast all season, Football 301, inside coverage all the way. Thank you for watching. Check out the Yahoo Sports Network and subscribe to Yahoo Sports and Yahoo Fantasy YouTube channel for everything that you need all throughout the course of the 2025 season. Good luck to all of you out there. This is going to be a fun year.